use the community's help answering a question. So I recently upgraded my Mac. Of many years, I was using a 2013 iMac, and I was using Photoshop CS5. And one of the most important tools I use as part of my workflow is a plugin called Peel Off White. This is invented by Berg Design, and it does what you see here. It kind of removes the white underlayer of an image. I'll just read the text on screen. The Peel Off White filter is useful for silhouetting objects that you will use later in composite images by lifting them off white or light colored backgrounds. You apply the filter, then paint behind the pixels with white using behind mode. You can create an opaque image with perfectly feathered images that don't have that clipping mask or evenly feathered look. Basically, what we're trying to do here, and in simplified language, is create true transparency. True transparency is not opacity. So, as an example of what I'm talking about here, I have this image here. This is from an old Photoshop file of mine from an old project. I think it was back when I was in art school. And I had used this effect, and so I have the layers isolated here just to kind of give you an example of what I'm talking about. So you can see that here we have this person kind of meditating in space, and it looks very cosmic. But if I come over here and turn off the white background layer underneath here, what you can see here is we have a truly transparent layer with a full alpha preservation. We have full alpha transparency here, like a PNG. And if I just turn on that white layer, then we get a solid image again. So what has been removed is just like the whiteness of the image itself. That's all been turned into transparency. Um, and that's true throughout the image. So anything that would kind of like give that like white layer. So you can see that the white actually, quite literally, the white has been peeled off from the image. And why this is useful and different than, say, an opacity, I will show you in a second. So let's say I were to, let's duplicate this layer. Let's duplicate the background white layer. And just to kind of give you a flattened image example, let's merge these. Let's merge layers. And then let me turn that one off so we don't see it under. Now I'll just adjust this layer with the opacity slider. And you can see the difference. So this is an opacity layer, the opacity slider, and this just washes out the image. You lose all the detail. So that's not what we're trying to go for here. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm wanting to do is just recreate this isolated transparency effect. To give you an example, of course, you can use it in layers. And notice, like, this is another image I have. This is another old Photoshop file. And you can see that, you can do stuff like this. I have this Buddha image that I have preserved, and I've dropped it over onto this kind of cosmic looking background. It looks very nice. Now, if I were to, let's see if I can bring up an image here. Okay, so I just have a blank image here. If I were to just drag and drop an image onto that, and then select multiply, and then I click this, it should, there. No, actually it's not doing the thing. What am I doing wrong here? Oh, here we go. Multiply, there we go. Alright, so you can see it achieves the same effect. The problem is, so what we have is like this transparency. So far, so good. But if I turn off the background layer, this just becomes solid. You can see the alpha channel under here, or the sort of blank pixels, but the transparency is no longer preserved. So this is the problem. We want this transparent layer, but what we want it as is as its own layer, okay? So how do you do this in Photoshop 2025? There used to be a way, and I don't know if it was disabled or if it's just something that is no longer new forms of Photoshop, But in older forms of Photoshop, there was actually a way that you could kind of take a layer, and I believe it was like you could like mask it, and then you went into like the effects, and you went into blending options, and I think it was like screen or something, and you could actually do this, or maybe it was lighten, I can't remember. But anyway, it was a very simple 2 to 3 step process where you could actually just create this effect without using the Bergmark plugin. I was lazy, I just used the plugin, it was a simple one-click process, so I just did that. But there is theoretically, there's a manual way to do this. And I need to know how to do that again. And I really, really appreciate the community's help in this because this is a huge part of my workflow for years, and now I'm a bit stumped on how to do this. All right, thank you everyone, and I look forward to your comments.